Dylan, how many games do you think you're going to win if you're only scoring one or two goals?
In a season? Well, 1 or 2.
One or two games? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it's going. So far this regular season, every single game that the Flames have won has been more than two goals. All others have been losses. Let's get into it.
Well, Chris, things were looking up for the first few games of the season, quite honestly. I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, but I was quite excited after the first couple games that we actually, no, things had started to look better. We were scoring a little bit. Markstrom was starting to look better. Um, and then about right after that Buffalo game, everything just went downhill. Flames really started sucking, can't score. Even when they're getting high danger opportunities, it's looking like last year where they're out shooting and out chancing and don't have any finishers. It's just it's been hard to watch. The fan base is at each other's throats because that's how that works, right? Uh,
Exactly. There's a lot of finger pointing. Who's the reason? Who's at fault? Who's the problem? The fans are well, they're fed up, right? We went through it last year with a bunch of players being with their shitty moods and blaming it on the coach and all that fun stuff. Well, they got rid of the coach, and the attitude hasn't really changed. Like they're not a team. Zadorov even spoke about it, a couple of days ago, and they're just individuals. So you're not going to win games as individuals. It's a team sport, and they need to start playing like it. Not sure, not sure how they're going to get that figured out, but with the current roster, I have my doubts.
I do too. I mean, I'm still not sold that they're going to be terrible all year. Um, I think odds are that they will be, but I'm not sold like, oh, for sure. Oh, it's going to be just like last year the whole time. Everyone's going to be pissed off. Everyone's going to like, we're not going to win as many games as we should, blah, blah, blah. But,
Mhm.
you know, the last 3 games, I think, have, you know, they haven't been fun to watch, that's for sure. And they haven't been,
So,
they just
it,
haven't
it, you know,
gelled.
that's right, and all the issues that have been plaguing the Flames for, I mean, let's be honest, for years, have just been
Amplified.
amplified, over the last four games. Well, three games, anyways. Obviously, a big win to start the road trip. I guess it's not the start of the road trip, but the big game in Buffalo. It was a good win. I saw some good signs there. They seemed to play well, and then as soon as they got into Columbus has just been it's been garbage since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, they're shooting lots. Who cares? They don't think their contracts for forwards are handed out based on shots, right?
Well, they shouldn't be unless you're uh a player who scores on 3/4 of them, then sure.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't have any of those.
We sure don't. We sure don't. In fact, we have a lot of the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo, obviously, we outshot them 36 to 27. Columbus, we outshot them 37-29. Detroit, we outshot them 31 to 30. And then the Rangers, we outshot them 26 to 20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not a lack of shots. Face-off percentage is starting to come back down to earth, I'll say. We had
Yeah.
against Detroit, 43.9, against
I won't cut it.
against Columbus, 42.6. So, obviously, both those games were kind of a shit show for controlling the play, and obviously, you can't control the play if you don't start with the puck.
Wait, against Columbus, it was 42%,
42.6. Yeah.
and that's with Line taking a bunch of draws.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, actually.
Right.
Like, if you think about it, that's freaking hilarious.
Yeah. Line A was 33%.
Yeah. So, how bad do we have to be against everybody else just to cover that and then be under 50?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
everybody
that's
else,
hilarious.
like Fantilli, 83.3, Crawley,
Rookie.
72.7, Jenner, obviously Jenner, he's a veteran, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
68.8. So I
Yeah.
don't know, man. Like, we started the season with some pretty incredible face-off numbers. We were one of the best in the league.
Yeah, weren't we like in the high 60s against the Jets?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Lindholm was on fire. Backlund was doing pretty good, but yeah, it's come crashing.
Yeah.
It's come.
Well, let's get into the I mean, unfortunately we have to do the one good game first because that was the first game since our last episode. So let's get into the Buffalo game.
Getting in the Buffalo game. So what do we have there? We have Huberdeau with his second goal of the year. Pretty nice little play. I mean, that was yeah, we still had Anderson then. So not saying that he's the reason why we're losing games, but
Well, no, because we lost with Anderson out.
Mhm.
Like we lost in Columbus and Anderson was ejected after the game, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't great goaltending on either side.
Devin Levi
Um,
wasn't that good, that's for sure.
no, no. I do I do feel that Markstrom actually no, Vladar played that game, didn't he? Yeah, Vladar played that game.
Yeah, I believe so.
So
Vladar
yeah.
played Buffalo and Detroit, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into Detroit in a couple of minutes, but yeah. So I mean, the goaltending wasn't very good on both sides, really.
no, both were sub
Going on
900.
with Vladar. I don't know what's going on with Vladar, but it's I
It's
don't know.
worrisome.
It is worrisome, right? I expect him to be better.
I do
You
too.
know,
Like I don't expect him to be Vesna caliber. I don't even expect him to be like 910, but like 90, 902, 904. You know, I expect it. I expect him to make more saves than he's been making. That's for sure. But to be
yeah,
fair, the quality of shots, especially in the Detroit game, were uh just absurd.
Mhm.
Um, but so
Levi and Vladar ended up with the same save percentage.
yeah, is that exactly 900 now that I look at it?
No, 889.
889. Okay. So it's 4 goals on 36 shots. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Which is terrible.
Mhm.
But I mean, we scored right off the hop, right? We're less than a minute in. Huberto banks one in off of a defender while trying to pass, which they all count. And if you're trying to dish, through the crease because somebody's actually there, I'll take it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
So the one
I
thing
mean,
that really impressed me with this game is they never really seemed like they were down, even though Buffalo kept tying it up, right? Because it was Huberto, then Eric Johnson, then Dewar, then Tage Thompson, then Coleman, then Paterka, then Rosiska, right? So it was kind of like one, then like they tied it up every time up until our fourth goal went in. And last year, I feel like the team would have just given up on that game. Not being able to hold the lead, they would have been pissed off. They would have been frustrated by the goalie, but they actually kept coming back. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with that. And after they came back a third time, I was like, Jesus, here we go. Is this the one where they start taking command and leapfrog us? And
And they never did.
no, they never did. Thankfully.
Um,
But yeah, there were some standouts, right? Dewar played really well. Rosica played very well.
Coleman's actually been good all year, and not
Coleman,
just because of the goals, but
no,
in
he's
general, I
really
feel
good
like,
away from the puck. He's always been really good away from the puck, right?
yeah, not $5 million worth, but
Correct. Yeah.
um, but the one thing that frustrates me about the Flames and always has, and I feel like any fan who's watched for any amount of time, if there is a star that's struggling to score on the other team, they always score on us.
Mhm.
It seems like well over half the time they score on us. We're their slump buster, and that happened with Tage Thompson, right? He hadn't had any
Yeah.
goals. He really hadn't had that many opportunities through his first few games of the season, and he just looked pretty fucking good against us and scored, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's just how it is. That Rosiska one though, um, as much as I like to shit on Kadri, you know, he saw where Rosiska was, and Rosiska put her. Oh, that was a nice play. That was a nice play through and through. Actually, we should talk about that because I feel like that was the last time I've noticed Dubé, and that was the hardest working segment of any player's game at all that I've ever seen this season.
That's fair. Dubé he's been less than impressive, you know, with or without the puck.
He has been. I last night's game, I didn't even notice him at all.
Yeah.
Well, like once or twice, and it was just like he was on the outskirts of the screen, right? He was never uh in the play really.
Yeah, exactly. He was never engaged. You know,
100%.
and I mean, even with Rosica not playing, when did he go out? First period?
Of last game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even with him out, Dubé still only played just under 11 minutes.
Yeah. It doesn't have the confidence of the coach, that's for sure. Which is disappointing to me because I feel like he often has a good stretch when he's put on the top line or when he's put in the top six or whatever, but he hasn't this year, given he only had like a half a period or a period or whatever on the top line. But he hasn't really done much this year. I just wish that the standards of play between different players were held the same, because if, for instance, if Kadri was held to the same standard as Dubé is held, Kadri would be on the fourth line as well all the time, or just not playing.
No, 100%. There has always been a hierarchy with when it comes to players like that, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like first we gauge them on the contract, and then we'll gauge them on their play.
Exactly.
And I don't think that's not a winning recipe. Clearly.
No, it's not at all.
The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet 5 on the NFL. That's code THPN. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, LA. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
I guess I'm that kind of fan where I don't care what a player's making. I want it. What have you done for me lately? Is got to be the mantra. You know, either
Always earned and
produce.
never given, like back to the Hartley days, right? Like,
That's right.
just because you're making a certain amount of money doesn't mean that a younger, hungrier person, no matter what industry you're in, can't come in and outperform you and take your place.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. If you become complacent, you know, then you can eat popcorn and watch from the press box. Like I'm so fed up with players like Kadri being literally the worst player on the ice for both teams,
Yeah.
game after game after game, and he's still considered our second line center, still getting 17 to 20 minutes of ice time. It's mind blowing that he has not been knocked down a peg. It blows me away.
And deservedly so. That's been the knock on Ruzicka his whole career, right? Has been he gets complacent after a game or two of playing well, and then disappears and start. But then they scratch him or they demote him or whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that with players who deserve it. Older players who deserve it, and they should.
Yeah, they're too worried about how it looks, I think.
I'd rather have a $7 million player on the fourth line that's not doing well than a $7 million player on the second line that's not doing well.
Well, that's right. And if you want to show that you're holding everybody accountable, it just needs to happen. If you want to show these young guys, if you bust your ass, you can actually become part of the top 6 unit.
Exactly.
You know,
I totally agree. And this episode is not going to be super positive because there hasn't been all that much positive to talk about in the last week or so. But here we are. So after the Buffalo game, which was a big win, we went back to back and played against the Blue Jackets.
Mm-hmm.
Outshot them 37-29. They plugged in their backup goaltender, Spencer Martin, who I don't know if you remember, but I plugged into our group chat when I heard that Martin was starting, and I'm like, oh, Gaudreau just went up to his coach and said, the Calgary Flames make backup goaltenders look like Vezina candidates, so just throw in the backup goaltender. And then it turned out that he kind of did look like a Vezina candidate, except for the fact that there wasn't that many high quality opportunities, but he still led 1 goal on 37 shots.
Vezina exactly. That we got back to our Flames pattern of shooting at the crest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he didn't. Kudos for him, man. Like he actually did look good, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, a 973 save percentage.
It's good.
I mean, you take that
good.
any day of the week, right?
100%, but it's also a lot easier to do when nobody's getting in your face. No, like that game, the Calgary Flames went back to their outskirts, like the perimeter play where they're just on the boards and circling the puck around the boards over and over and over in the offensive zone and trying to get outside shots and nobody actually getting in on the net until the last 5 minutes of the game. And then they started doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Playing
Like,
from behind and all of a sudden there's urgency with 5 minutes left. Where the fuck was that urgency for 55?
yeah,
I mean,
the other whole bunch that actually mattered. Right?
yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, they played well in the first period. But as soon as the second started, it was just a completely different team. And they've done that numerous times this year.
100%. They sure have, and it's been pretty hard to watch, really. And like, even though like Lindholm scored our only goal that game, right? Because we lost 3-1, and it was a nice read, and it was a shorthanded breakaway. Good on him. Good read by Backlund to see him there, all that type of stuff. But it was one of the only 3 or 4 good plays the team made in the first 55 minutes of the game, and that just won't do.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It was, and then of course it brings us to the end with Anderson's hit, and we all know about that one.
Well, let's talk about it for a second though, because I know you don't think it should be a penalty. At least that's how I gathered what you were trying to say to me when I was talking to you about it after it happened. I could be wrong there, but
I it's not that I don't think it should be a penalty. I just don't think it should be a major. After looking at it numerous times after the fact, yeah, he did catch him in the head. His skates came off the ice, whether it was on the hit follow through because Laine was down and he was trying to drive up. I don't really know. The suspension to me is obscene, in my opinion. But yeah,
I don't think it's obscene. I think it's obscene when you look at the precedent that's been set by the NHL over the past couple of years, where hits like that get a random $5,000 fine or maybe a game or two, especially for first offenders, right? But I do think that dangerous hits like that, the precedent should be 4 or 5 games. Like it should be something that, like, if you're trying to protect your talent and stop dangerous shit like that from happening, unnecessary shit like that from happening, you've got to set an example and keep that example for every play that looks like that from every player that does it.
And that's fair. I do still think there needs to be a sliding scale. Obviously I wouldn't be giving Rasmus Anderson the same amount of games as I would be, say, Tom Wilson.
Well, no, because he would be a repeat offender, right? But I mean,
exactly.
Like, there should be what I mean is there should be a higher bottom bottom level of the punishment for a hit like that. And it should be 4 games. And Tom Wilson should get nothing less than like 10 games at this point in his career, 12 games. And it should go up from 4. It shouldn't be like, here, have 1 day off and see it the day after tomorrow, right? Like that. I don't see how that's stopping people from doing stupid shit.
Well, yeah, and I understand what you're saying. One thing that I would counter that with is nobody knows what the fuck the standard is.
Oh, they don't.
Right?
That's the problem.
And so So whether and it goes with all like anything that has the discretion of the referee or the league printed into the rules needs to be changed. You
Absolutely.
hit somebody in the head, it's this many games. Then you can set a standard. The way that it's been done forever is it's never gonna fix it. Because I
Mhm.
tell you what, the next person that sits in front of fucking George there that on a head hit, if he doesn't get 4 games, I'm gonna be livid.
Yep.
Because Rasmus Anderson is not a dirty player. It's the
No,
first
he's
time
not.
he's ever fucking done anything like that, and he gets 4 games.
Yeah, it's
And the
unnecessary.
next person, goddamn well is going to get a $5,000 fine or a game or 2 maybe.
Yeah.
And
And
that's where my problem is with that suspension. Not so much that
me
he
too.
was suspended, but the 4 games to me is obscene unless it becomes the norm. And we all know that it's not the norm, and it will continue to not be the norm.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it should
Yeah.
be the norm, but it won't be, and that's what pisses me off the most is that it's going to be
Yeah.
that's the one that was the big suspension for the year, and then everybody else is going to get 5K, maybe a game, unless you're a repeat offender, and then you might get 4. And,
That's right.
and it's
If
not
somebody's going under the microscope for their 3rd time gets 4, no, fuck that.
bullshit.
Like that's bullshit. And that's my problem with the whole thing. I mean, yeah, there's so many different things that you could say about the hit itself. The timing on it, I think, is the worst part as far as I'm concerned. It's not a team that you're a rival with. It's not a team that you're
It's not a
playing again in
player
a
you're
week and a
rival with
half.
either.
Well, a player be damned. Like
It
the
shouldn't matter
timing of
who it is, and it shouldn't matter which
no,
player delivers the hit or which player gets hit. It
that's
shouldn't,
right.
and it shouldn't matter. It also shouldn't matter
Yeah.
if the player is injured, but it does.
That's right. But I think the dying seconds of a game like that is not the time you do that here.
No, you don't. And I just want to say too, I don't know if there's a rivalry. There very well could be, player wise, because there's not like a NHL rivalry between the two, but Finland and Sweden, they're in the same age group too, so you never know.
You never know. And whatever. Maybe something was said during the game. I mean, who knows? But I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah, I don't know that. And the NHL needs to rewrite their wording on what is charging.
So they actually, for those of you that don't know, the reason that was a charge, it's silly to me. A couple years ago, about 5 years ago, I want to say in 2018, the NHL changed the rule of charging to be to include an upward, like if you're jumping into a player, it's charging. I do think that they should change that as well, because it should be its own rule. That's not charging, that's jumping. That's 2 whole different fucking things.
2 different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had forgotten about the skate off the ice thing that they added to charging a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so when they said he's being brought in for charging, I'm like in no way was that hit charging, right?
No.
But just because they added the word, but whatever.
What's actually hilarious to me is one of the like 2 or 3 examples that the NHLPA video, or the Department of Safety video describing the charging rule is actually Nazem Kadri. When he was on the Maple Leafs, he was charged with charging for doing that, and he's like the poster boy of that now.
Oddly enough, he doesn't do anything like that anymore. It doesn't get physically engaged at all, really, in my opinion.
At all.
Which is okay, because when he did it to the extreme and lost teams. But
so that game was a whole bunch of garbage.
yeah.
And I guess moving on to the Detroit game. I'll be honest, I get home from work at about 11 p.m. and the game started just a couple hours later. So I was sleeping. I was trying my best to sleep anyways for through the first period because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to work the next day. And then I turned it on for the second period and I watched about a period and a half and I was like, this is garbage. And then I turned it off. Usually I don't, but that was the most pathetic game I've seen from a Flames team in I can't even know how long, man. And I only watched
Uh,
a period and a half of it. You watched the whole thing, right? So
yeah, and unfortunately, I sat through it all. I mean, obviously, Vladar put on a goaltending clinic of how not to goaltend.
yeah,
Um,
the modern day
so-
Brent Cron.
do you remember not last year, but the year before when I was talking about Vladar about his position is always very good and it's surprising because he doesn't seem to ever know where the actual puck is.
Yeah, I forgot that you said that, but now that you say that, yeah, his puck
But
tracking wasn't very good. And that was the year that that was the playoff year, right? That was the Gaudreau
yeah,
Kachuk line. Yeah,
that was the year that we acquired him, and I was like, he makes unbelievable saves for not knowing where the puck is. He'll be looking straight out and it's the puck's in the corner.
yeah,
Um, that game reminded me of that, but without being in the right position.
yeah.
Vladar's having himself a hard time right now, and I don't know what the answer is to get him out of it, but he's got to figure it out because as it is right now, he's not an NHL caliber goaltender.
And he's not movable either.
No,
Maybe we could put him on waivers and he wouldn't get claimed. I don't think.
no, exactly.
Um, I do think there's more there than what he's showing this year, but
Mm-hmm.
it's been really bad, and I think that it affected the team's. It shouldn't, and it's not a good excuse, but it affected the team's confidence in front of him because even like see it was 3-0, and then Mangiapane scored, and then like a minute and a half later, DeBrincat scored, and then 5 minutes later, Sharangovich scored, and then just to start the third period, Wallman scored, and it's just like Vladar couldn't hold his own at all, and he couldn't, and the team kind of gave up after that Wallman goal, and like not that they were playing well because they weren't, but like to me, the way Markstrom's been playing, even though the team sucked, that would have been like a 3-2 game, not a 6-3 game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's even with Markstrom probably letting in one soft one, it would still be 3-2, right? Um,
yeah. It was disheartening when Vladar pulled a Markstrom and led in the first shot. That's always
yeah,
it's always hard on a team, right?
100%.
Especially when the team went through it last year with garbage goaltending from both of them. When you see that first shot go in, it's got to be super deflating when you're sitting on the bench.
Oh, for sure. Like without a doubt.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, like Detroit, they've been embarrassing teams. We aren't the only team they've embarrassed this season so far. I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for, but there's still no reason um for that performance. Like if we had lost and not looked like garbage, the whole game, I don't think people would have been as pissed off as they are. Also, why did they start Vladar? Like there was, if you look at the schedule here, there was. It's not like it was a back to back. They didn't need to
No,
start. They didn't need to start Vladar twice in a week, twice in 4 days.
no, it didn't make any sense to me either.
Especially since there was
I
2 games before the Buffalo game, so it's not like Markstrom played a whole bunch. He played 1 game in the previous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
yeah, yeah. So I can only assume that Markstrom was maybe under the weather a bit. Obviously, that's speculation. There hasn't been any report of that, but it
Yeah.
does seem bizarre to put him in the two games in a row, right? Especially after losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And from what I remember, Markstrom has a way better record against Detroit.
I don't look too far into that stuff, honestly. I don't really believe in, oh, this player has this team's number. Like, it's fun to talk about sometimes, but I feel like for the most part, especially, like, it's one thing if it's like, oh, McDavid has the Flames numbers because they play 50,000 times a year, most years. But, I mean, how many times has Markstrom played Detroit in his career? How many times has Markstrom played how many times has Vladar? I guess Vladar's probably played Detroit more because he played for Boston, but he only played a few games that year, so I don't know.
Yeah, he's only before he came to Calgary, he only had 5 games in the NHL. So
so I don't really get that decision to play Vladar.
no, it doesn't make any sense, and they haven't, as far as I know, they haven't talked about the reason.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I believe I can't remember when the media availability was with Kadri, and I do know it sounds like I'm picking on Kadri, and I am a little bit because he's been absolutely abysmal. He's been terrible. He makes all of our other bad players look like superstars. And they haven't even been very good the last 3 games. But there was a media availability with Kadri, and every time he has one, he talks about accountability. He talks about playing a team game, and it drives me nuts every time because he doesn't do either of those things. In the same media availability, he said we have to have accountability for each other and for ourselves. And then he went on to say that he's close to scoring. He's been getting chances. He just needs a bounce. And I'm like, I can't remember last time you had a high quality scoring opportunity because you're too busy fucking trying to dump pucks in from the blue line because you refuse to use your teammates. Like, or the last time you got in front of the net. Like, what is going on? You can't preach accountability and then not have any fucking accountability.
Yeah, he has none, right? He's always had none.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's between him and Huberdeau right now. That's $17.5 million just not producing, coughing the puck up.
Yeah.
And they were both -4 against Detroit. Same with Dubé.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
It's so frustrating, and again, it's not all Kadri's fault. I thought Huberdeau had a really strong start to the season. The first 3 or 4 games, he was pretty good. He looked like he was heating up and primed for a good season. Then he started kind of shitting the bed a little bit, and then they put him with Kadri, and that made him even worse. Which that should just like stop trying that. Don't ever try that. Don't even put them on the same ice on the power play. Don't even put them on the same ice when there's a line change halfway through, just keep them fucking separate at all times because
at all times.
they
Yeah.
drag each other down.
Well, yeah, exactly. You got, one guy that is a playmaker and the other, and another guy that for whatever reason thinks that's what he is now, even though he's never been.
Right.
And yeah, and then you got nobody there to score a goal. So they don't gel together at all. They had that one play near the end of last season with that phenomenal pass and tip in, right?
Yeah. And they played together for like 60 games last season. I don't know. I could be wrong on that number, but it felt like well over 3/4 of the season. It was way too much.
It was way too much. One of the things that Kadri does, and I just want to bring this up because it made me kind of chuckle last night, and he's totally right. Curtis, I'm gonna Pilo commented or posted in the Flames Hub there about Kadri's his spin move that he does, skates towards the blue line and then does a spin move and blind shot at the net.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it forever.
His whole career.
And I've never seen it work. I don't know why he does it. I don't know why coaches haven't told him to quit doing it. But 99% of the time, it just ends up on the opposing team's stick and they're down the ice.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say he gets in the blue line and refuses to pass and instead tries to dump it on net. You're right. Half 3/4 of the time he does a little spin move while he's doing that, or he tries to deke through a player who's, he tries to deke through them instead of around them, and then
he tries to deke through a stationary object, and if you can believe it, Dylan, that never works.
It's never once worked in the history of hockey, actually. Like even for somebody who's 6'7", like Tage Thompson, like he has to at least attempt to go around somebody and knock them down on the way. But if he's going to try and go through somebody, then that person's going to be laying on the ice in front of him, and then he won't be able to skate past them.
That's right. And the puck will likely end up underneath them anyways.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the physics.
When we first got Kadri, I was willing to give it a shot. Obviously, we needed an agitator to replace Tkachuk. He hasn't been an agitator. He hasn't been the guy in front of the net. He's literally done not a single fucking thing that I thought he would be good at.
Nope.
He's just 100% has disappointed.
He has been an agitator. To me, you and the fan base.
True.
I mean,
yes.
Everybody loved him last year and even though he had 15 good games to start the season and then sucked the rest of the season, everybody so many people gave him the pass on the rest of the season. And you and I think you could probably go back in our archives of the podcast and see we spent 3/4 of last year just frustrated by everything that he did. And it's continued on to this year. And quite frankly, you could probably go back into the archives of the podcast from the day that the signing was announced and hear us both say, he's here now, so we're willing to give it a shot and give him the benefit of the doubt, but we don't believe, because that's exactly how he played his entire career, except for 1 year.
And the funny thing about last year is he ended up the season with his 4th best point total.
Yeah, that was his average point total, and everyone was trying to say, "Oh, he needs a bounce back," and it's like, well,
bounce back from what?
To what? This is the player he is. Bouncing back would be being the same player.
Yeah. Last year was the bounce back because the year before that was
the outlier.
Not normal. Yeah, the outlier. So he bounced back last year to what he has always been.
So
a 50 point player.
In between that was in between the two games that media availability that he had, and it just drove me insane because how full of shit he is. Anyways, and then we went on to the New York game, and I actually kind of thought we had a first good period, and I don't even mean just because we were up.
No, we were flying.
I thought that the Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman line, they should never split that up. That's just, it's too good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
obviously,
they work well together.
neither of us are a Mangiapane fan, but when he plays on that line, when he gets minutes with Backlund, he's a
It's
good player.
noticeable. It's noticeable for the right reasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Coleman was an absolute killer that game, even though he got the one goal and then did nothing on the score sheet for the rest of the game. He was an absolute killer that game. He was by far the best player, other than Markstrom for the first two periods, anyways. For the Flames, I think he was just the best player for the Flames.
Yeah, I agree. He had probably, I would say, one of the best games I've seen him in a Flames jersey. Like
Yep.
he came out flying. He wanted that win so bad. And
Yeah.
even if you look at his media avail, was that today? Like he's pissed, right?
He's angry, and I think
He's
he's pissed at Zadorov too uh for calling the team out. But I
well,
enjoyed that.
I applaud Sidorov for doing it personally. I mean, all he did was just say what we all know,
Yeah.
and everybody in the room knows. It's not
Yeah.
surprise. Like nobody's hiding it.
No. And while we're on the topic of what Zadorov said, I want to say this to all of the people that seem like they've been spamming about, now Sutter's not here. It's not his fault. Nothing was his fault. It's like, I don't think I saw one person last year say it's only Sutter's fault or it's all Sutter's fault.
I saw it a lot.
I saw the vast majority of people at least saying that Sutter was the biggest problem, but not the only problem.
Right.
And I think that's blatantly obvious, but I think that there's been a lot of people trying to say, oh, I guess Sutter wasn't the only problem. It's like, well, I don't think many people, at least I don't think many people were saying Sutter was the only problem. So he was a big problem, but he wasn't the only problem, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. No, and obviously some of the problem, yeah, okay, Sutter aside, he was hard on players. He called out players that he probably shouldn't have. Whatever. You know my thought on millionaires being soft, but now he's gone, and there's those same players that were apparently butthurt last year are not stepping up. So
Nope.
you got the coach fired. So now it's up to you
and
to win some games.
It's true, right? I still think that the coach was a big problem last year, but the personnel obviously was like, they don't click. I think that this team is, again, like, we're only 7 games in or whatever, but to me it's just, this team doesn't mesh well enough together.
And you're absolutely correct. And if you look at teams that have chemistry, that play well, all that fun stuff, they also have players that are elite, and they know their role. I'm here to score. I'm here to create the play. Whatever their role is, they get it. But our problem is we draft mid to low every year.
Yep.
And so we're not saying that the players aren't good guys, but we're not drafting enough quality And so when we bring up these guys, the ceiling for the majority of them is maybe middle six.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know how far the fan base thinks we're going to go with that, but they seem to think that every year's the year that players that have always been 40-point guys, 50-point guys are all of a sudden going to be 80, 90, 100-point guys. They're not going to be that. They're never going to be that. They're going to be maybe some time on the second, but mostly fourth and third line players.
Yeah. And
Like,
I think the problem is, and like, I say that about Dubé. I don't think I've ever said he's going to be a first line player, like a first line caliber player. But I think the problem with the team is that when the team is healthy, Dubé, Mangiapane, Ruzicka, these are guys who, one of them, Sharangovich, one of them is the first line winger, because that's just the only guy we have, right?
Right, they're the first line wingers on this team. They
That's what I
wouldn't crack
mean.
the
None
first
of them
two
are first
lines
line
on.
caliber players.
Yeah, well,
But the
that's what
problem
I'm
is
saying.
we have to put a third liner on to the first line. That's the problem with the team. So you have to put that's one of the problems with the team. There's several, but
Mhm.
you can't keep, like, even last year, Toffoli is, I mean, he's going off right now, but he's been a career second line player and he was on our first line. That's a problem,
That's right.
right?
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying is the team, and it's been going on for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Our drafting has been piss poor. Even when we have the opportunity, like what do we draft? We draft guys, even if they're top, I don't know, say 10th, like, okay, they might get a sprinkle in the NHL until they get frustrated for not playing, and then they get, they move somewhere else or they get traded or whatever the case, or we mismanage superstars. Like, just, man, I'm just so fed up with the organization. The decision making between the ownership down, obviously most of it comes from the ownership, is just garbage. Like, I honestly want to call Murray up and ask him if he's hiring at his actual business, because clearly you can just go there and not have to do your job and keep it forever. As long as you're one of the old boys club, you don't have to work hard. You don't have to try hard. You don't have to be held accountable. You just go there for your paycheck.
Yeah.
It's just so gross. Yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with.
I think we all are.
24 players on the team.
Yep. Yeah, me too. I really am, and I'm not super frustrated with Conroy yet. I'm frustrated with the hiring of Conroy, with him being put in that position anyways, because I don't think he was the right choice, and I never really did. I think he's too nice, and I think this whole thing with Hannafin and Lindholm, where he's just letting them dictate what's happening, is a problem and completely predictable. Just knowing what we know about Conroy, like, nobody should be surprised this is happening.
No.
But I'm not too frustrated, because I don't think that, like, one summer is enough to really judge somebody in that position. You know what I mean? I feel like a GM, like, you don't even see, like, Tampa didn't see Yzerman's plan come to fruition until like 2 years after he left. So then, like, that position
I agree with
is
that.
a long-term position.
Yeah,
and
no,
he's still
and
dealing with,
that's very true.
Yeah.
But I mean, Conroy's dealing with Brad's garbage, which
Yeah.
is something the team's going to have to deal with for many, many years. But Greg's not the guy.
Conroy was part of the garbage, though.
He was part of the garbage, but he's not the guy.
No.
He is absolutely not the guy. He's a great human being. We all love Craig Conroy. He's not the guy.
No, I don't think so either.
He has too many personal friends that play on the team. You can't have that as a manager.
No, you can't.
Like you can't. He needs to be able to make those decisions, and right now he's not. This whole, you're right. This Hannafin and Lindholm debacle. Make a fucking move. Do
Make
something.
an example out of one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So that you're in
much as I
charge
like
of the
Lindholm,
team.
yeah, as much as I like Lindholm, like if you prove that you're the boss by trading him because he's not signing, then that will make other players will see that, and they'll see,
Right.
you know, like I can't string this team along anymore, like Johnny Gaudreau did, right? Like,
Yeah.
This is not
Yeah.
Brad. Like, you have to prove you aren't Brad Treliving,
Right.
who refused to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Whether that came down from ownership or not, I don't know. But I tell you what, if ownership is mandating Craig still negotiate with these two fucking guys, that's a problem. Like, then just flat out say we don't have a manager. Just say my name's Murray Edwards and I run the show. And then the fans will go, oh, well, we've always suspected. Great.
Yeah. At least we know
Like-
we know for sure anyways, but
Yeah. But this whole, like, how do you go through this entire summer knowing that you have to get something done with those two guys especially, and not a single piece of movement has been brought to the table whatsoever? Oh, they're still talking. Great. So what? No, they shouldn't be talking. Craig should be talking with other teams.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. So the best I can get for Hannafin right now is a second and a middle six guy. Whatever. See ya, Hannafin. Sorry, we're moving you. If you're not going to sign, you're out of here.
Yeah. And
You know?
I mean, I don't think Hannafin is even worth a second round pick, but that's just me.
Yeah, that is just you.
I'm really not a fan of him.
Mm.
Anyways,
Yeah, they need to do
do
something.
we need to recap the Rangers game? Like, the Coleman was nice, the Coleman goal was nice, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I mean, garbage goal because that's the only kind of goals we can score. And then 3 straight goals from the Rangers. I mean, a couple of decent deflections. Really nothing crazy other than the team being excessively average and Markstrom holding them in it for half the game and then kind of just stopping holding them in because they refused to score a goal for him. They refused to really try, I feel like.
It was frustrating. You know, once it became obvious that Coleman wasn't going to be able to score more, even he started slowing down. I'm sure he was getting tired.
Yeah.
He was carrying a team on his back, or at least for the first 30 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
right
kind of that was a heartbreaker, to be honest, especially with how strong they came out of the gate with that goal from Coleman and just that entire line, how they dominated pretty much every second they were on the ice for the first period and midway through the second. To see the other teams or the other lines just not producing in any way. Just, it was super frustrating after that.
100%.
You know, and oddly enough, even with how much they were dominating it, Backlund ended the game without a single shot. That's how strong Coleman was going to the
Yeah.
net,
Yep.
because he had 4 shots. Mangiapane had 3.
Yep.
Backlund had none.
It doesn't bother me if a guy doesn't have a shot on net if he's helping drive his line, which he all 3 of them when they're together, like
Mhm.
specifically Mangiapane, when he's on any other line, he doesn't help drive it. Right? Even if you look back at that Dubé Kadri Mangiapane line from last year,
Mhm.
Dubé and Kadri were driving it. And that
Yeah.
was the only time Kadri was good all year. And Mangiapane was a kind of a
Yeah.
floater on that.
That was what
When
first 10
Mangiapane is
games,
on
right?
10, 15, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Until Huberdeau got hurt. And then when Mangiapane is on the line with Backlund and Coleman, I heard somebody call it the bacon pickle sandwich line for some reason, but I thought it was kind of funny. But they work, and they all help. They all do things to help drive the line to be better. That should never be split up, in my opinion.
Yeah, why mess with what works, right? I guess
Exactly.
that's the 3rd line figured out. What do we do with the other 3 lines?
I don't know. You told me you had a question for me.
Did I?
Yeah, before we got on today, you said you had a question for me. You like warned me about it.
I asked you the question.
Oh, I didn't even realize you asked me the question. What was that?
It was right at the very start. I asked you how many games you're going to win if you score 1 or 2 goals.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the question you wanted to ask me. Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure you're prepared, because normally when we're doing the intro, I don't
Ask.
we don't have a conversation. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't catch you off guard.
Oh, yeah, no.
I didn't want
no.
to have an awkward silence or even an awkward moment, such like this.
Yeah, here we are. But honestly, yeah, that's how it's gonna happen, man. Like we are probably gonna score 1 or 2 goals most games.
And we're not good defensively. We're not good enough defensively to sustain that.
And I feel like our defense, like the way it stacks up, we have good defensemen.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's just the system not happening properly or whatever, but we have on paper a really strong, I like top 6 defense, in my opinion.
I mean, we have a decent defensive core for sure. I'm not a fan of the zone coverage at all.
It doesn't seem to be working much.
No, it doesn't. It's way too scrambly.
Yeah.
In my
I
opinion.
wanted to give it 8 games. It's been 7, and I'm not happy with it.
No, exactly. I figured I would give it 10, but I'm starting to lose my patience with it.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, on paper, the names, we have a good defense core.
Mhm.
Just they're not playing very well together right now. Our whole team is kind of just not playing well together.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole team.
Even when Lindholm and Huberdeau were producing fairly well to kick off the season. I can't remember if I said it to you. I can't even remember if I said it on the podcast, but I was talking, I know for sure I was talking to my buddy Kyle about it. They looked really good on the same line as separate pieces. They didn't look really good on the same line together. You know what I mean? They individually looked good, but they didn't look good together.
Never really looked that good together, which is
No,
strange to me.
it's
So you have
unfortunate.
Lindholm who is a shooter and has a phenomenal shot, and Huberdeau, who loved feeding passes to guys with really good shots, and for whatever reason, those two have not been able to make it work.
Can I give you my opinion on that and why I think that Huberdeau hasn't found somebody on the team who he plays well with?
Sure.
Okay. I went back and watched a bunch of Huberdeau's highlights in Florida from the past several years.
Mhm.
He plays really good when he's got one shooter and then one guy who drives the net. The reason is because half the time the guy driving the net has his stick on the ice and is drawing defenders towards him because he becomes the most important threat, and then that opens up the other guy, the shooter, so Huberdeau can pass to the shooter and the shooter can shoot. Also, so think Bennett and Duclair, right? So Bennett's the guy who drives the net with a stick on the ice, and Duclair is the shooter, right?
Yeah.
And then when the defenders aren't going after the guy who's driving the net and instead covering Duclair, because Bennett had his stick on the ice, Huberdeau could bank passes off Bennett's stick and they'd go in. That's just right. And the problem is the Flame, like, it's really basic hockey shit. But the problem is the Flames don't have anybody driving the net with their stick on the ice. They barely even have anyone driving the net, never mind with the stick on the ice. They need to start doing that.
That's been a problem for years, not having anybody to drive the net, right?
Well, Monahan was great at it. Kachuk was great at it.
Mm-hmm. And well, that's one line.
Yeah.
A couple of years in a row.
Yeah.
But that's been a thing, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I envisioned Kadri doing when he got here.
I didn't envision him doing that all the time, but I did envision him doing it some of the time. You know what I mean?
But he should absolutely be doing it on the power play.
He should. I have no idea why he's on the point in the power play. He's the most useless point man in the history of point men.
Right.
Like, get him away from
that. He doesn't have a good shot.
No.
He really doesn't.
No.
I would rather have a second defender on the line myself. If Kadri is going to be the option, get him off the ice and put a defender there. I don't care which one.
You know who I actually would like to see get some power play time is Zadorov. I've not been a huge Zadorov guy throughout the years, but he does cause havoc because he's so high risk. He causes a lot of havoc, and he makes defenders move, and he makes his teammates move because he's doing shit that he's not supposed to be. And then the team's like, oh shit, I got to go do something. Right.
Yeah.
Do you kind of get what I'm saying there?
I do. 100%. And he activates in some pretty interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
But he's quick at just getting around and back into position. I do like that. One thing one of the positives I'll take away from the Rangers game was when he was kind of somewhat getting towards the center of the ice in the offensive zone, in the Rangers zone, and then we lost the puck and it went right in kind of to the corner to, I can't remember the Rangers player that ended up getting it, but he was along the boards. And Snorov just said fuck it and went right after him, just railroaded him near the end of the game. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Gaudreau. Yeah, that was just so funny to me. We're just like the exact opposite corner to where his position is, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm taking him out.
Yeah, yeah. And he complete high risk, completely. Yeah. That is the Zadorov that played in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I, because of what was happening in the game,
Mhm.
like I wouldn't be okay with that if the team was playing well, but I'm okay with that because the team needed something to fucking happen at that
Yeah.
point.
Well,
right?
yeah. So one thing I'll point out as well. It was near the beginning of the game. I can't remember who was on the blue line, but they started skating up along the boards, and Dewar immediately parked his ass in that D spot on the blue line, and I really like to see stuff like that. He's very accountable.
Dewar?
He knows Dewar. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew exactly where he needed to be at that moment, and I appreciated that of him.
Yeah.
Even
No,
even
me
though
too.
he's been pretty quiet for a bit now, but he's yeah. I'm still pretty high on Dewar. Not high as in going to be a top 6, but I'm pretty high on what he brings to the team.
I am too. I just wanted to expand on that whole Huberdeau needing somebody to drive to the net thing. And the thing is I think Lindholm and him could work together if they did have somebody who was a net driver on their line.
Mhm.
The only guy that I can see who's a net driver on the team is Sharon Govich and Greer, but Greer's not going to be on the first line.
No, I hope not.
Sharon Govich.
Don't say never. It's the Calgary Flames you're talking about.
Right. La 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 la. But Sharon Govich shouldn't be a first line player, but he has a wicked shot and he drives the net, and he's willing to get dirty and get rebounds and even get on the boards and get the puck. And I just want to see anybody who actually drives the net on Huberdeau's line, because out of the players on our team right now, today, who drives the net that you would want on a line with Huberdeau?
Aside from Zari?
He's not on the team today. He's on the other team today.
Right. Didn't make the cut for some reason.
For some stupid reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many, is there?
No. Even Ruziska, like, he's good at digging the pucks out, but he doesn't drive the net very often.
Yeah, he seems to like to hang out the hash marks.
It's too bad he got hurt. I should have done this when we were diving into that game, but the officiating in that game really pissed me off. And
it was pretty bad.
It's not because we lost, and it's not because I think there was a whole bunch of bad calls on either side. There was one, but I think that the referees need to be held accountable, because first of all, that Ruziska hit that took him out was bad and should have been a penalty. And the ref was staring, like you can see in the camera, the ref was fucking staring at it. But because they let that go throughout the game, more players started taking dirty runs at each other. Yes. The refs, and I said it in our group chat. There was a couple people who were saying it on Reddit. And like the refs are going to let people get hurt. They're not doing their job. Their job is to call the rule book. The rule book is there so people don't get hurt. And they're letting people go after each other like that without taking anybody off the ice for any stretch of time. It's not okay.
And even with that being said, they still all 9 penalties, which is a high amount. So that just kind of shows how chippy that game was.
Yeah, but they didn't call the penalties that should be called. They called the penalty. Well, they called one penalty that shouldn't be called, but they didn't call the really dangerous shit. They called the kind of
the clutching grab
shit, right?
Yeah, the hooking and the holding and the stuff that's subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand what you're saying, and you're right.
And
Yeah,
a
so
lot of people were saying, because I had some conversations with some people about it, and a lot of people were telling me like, well, of course the refereeing is going to be bad when there's 16 games on in one night, because they don't have the refs aren't going to be super experienced or anything. I'm like, okay, well then don't have 16 games if you don't have the staff to do 16 games. Don't fucking do it.
why wouldn't the refs be experienced?
Well, apparently there was a couple
that's
games who didn't have experienced refs
really.
because there was too many games going on.
Then yeah, that can't happen.
No. And then I went back. Actually, I'll maybe I won't look at it right now, but I went back and I looked at the refs' names. I didn't recognize either of those guys' names. Like I generally, like, not that I pay too much attention to the refs most times, but I didn't recognize either of those guys' names, and I do know a lot of the refs' names in the league just from watching games and having them be a part of what's going on. You play-by-play guy says the refs' names quite often, and I didn't recognize either of those guys' names.
Yeah, there's Chris Blanker and Michael Markovic.
Do you recognize
I
those
got
names?
nothing. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, to my point.
Yeah. I didn't. I even, knowing that there were 16 games going on, I didn't even think about fulfilling the obligations for referees and linesmen, right? Because obviously it's not a thing, so they shouldn't be geared up to have that, or they just have too many people sitting around doing nothing majority of the year, right?
Yeah.
Well, the night before and after, we just have one or two games, and
It's a joke.
if you have enough for 16 games, then it's a lot of people sitting around doing nothing most of the year.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Anyways, that's my frustration there with the refs. And again, like, it's got nothing to do with winning and losing. The team was garbage. We didn't deserve to win that game, period.
No.
And I have no problems with us losing because we deserve to lose. I have problems with inexperienced refs not being smart enough to call dangerous shit and then letting more dangerous shit happen because they just don't know what to do. If you're gonna have an inexperienced ref, have an experienced ref with that guy. You know what I mean? Like, have a rookie on a line with a vet, right?
Yeah, you got to balance it out. You got to put him with Tanev, right? If you're going to bring a rookie in, you got to play with Tanev.
Exactly. Or
that's
if
just
you
how that is.
bring Osterley in, I guess. He,
Sure.
a fringe
Yeah,
guy.
I mean, he gets to babysit Gilbert.
Yeah. What were those refs' names? Like, if you have one of those guys, bring in Wes McCauley to play to go with him, and then bring
I mean, I think every game should have a Wes McCauley in it, to be honest.
Just for entertainment value.
Entertainment. He seems to call a pretty fair game, actually.
I think so too.
I don't mind him at all. And I don't say that often about refs.
No,
because I've never been one. I've been an umpire for baseball, but never a ref for hockey.
Yeah. And I feel like being an umpire for baseball and chugging down 3 or 4 beers while you're doing it is a little bit different than.
That's not the same as what I've done. I am carded.
Yeah, there's been days where I've gone to play baseball and my team plays the early game, and then we finish, and then I decide to ref a late game, and I decide to ump a late game, and I'm already tipsy, half cut, and then I go to start the next game and I've got another 6-pack waiting. I'm just like, I probably shouldn't do this, but I'll do
I'm going to do it just for the love of the game.
it.
And I'm going to do it because my name's Dylan and I don't drive, so I can do it anyways.
Exactly.
Life in a small town.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is there anything else you wanted to get to, Chris? Or
You know what? I feel better after airing my grievances, and I have a new lease. Flames are going all the way. No, I'm kidding. No, I feel like we've covered it. We've got, as I say, some important games coming up, especially that classic on Sunday against the Oilers without potentially without their top player and without our top defenseman.
did you notice they said
Yay.
1 to 2 weeks for McDavid? Like,
Yeah, they did.
and they said that exactly a week before so he very well could be back.
He could very well be back. Yeah. Yeah.
But that should, I mean, I think that should be fun. Hopefully playing in a special game like that, a special game, there's like fucking 10 of them a year now, but playing a special game like that hopefully can bring the guys together a little bit. I don't know. I'm so fucking sick of saying bring the guys together or gain some chemistry or whatever. It feels like we've been saying this for a calendar year now, and it's time to stop.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, the time is now. Their
Yeah.
shit are good off the pot.
100%. Well, make sure you share us with your friends. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know how you feel about the start to the Flame season. Maybe you're a little bit more positive about it. Maybe you're not. Let us know in the comment section below, and check out the Hockey Podcast Network as well. They've got some pretty good shows about every team in the league. So
yeah, absolutely, and always make sure you're following us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at the ArmChair GM _pod. Try and get updates and news posted daily. The good old Twitters. We have a lot of fun with the Hockey Podcast Network crew there. There's a few good guys there that we like to have a good time and joke around with.
indeed, and they do some live streams for games as well here and there. So
Oh yeah,
our buddy Kyle and his buddy did one for the Flames and Blue Jackets game. So be sure to follow them on the on YouTube as well.
yeah, absolutely. I'll be posting links to that as well. I'm jumping on with Kyle next week, the game against the Stars on Wednesday, the 1st of November. I'll be joining him on his live. Be my first time doing it. It'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, Flames fans. There's yet another breakdown of what seems to be a breakdown.
Cheers.
Well,
I
we see
think
you
we
next
just got our
time.
name for the episode.
Right. Cheers. Go Flames.